Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a truly fascinating intersection. We're looking at the exact point where advanced, highly abstract mathematics collides with deep human connection. We'll be exploring a narrative drawn directly from a brilliant piece called The Topology of Her Mind. It's a story that asks us to look at the absolute messiness of love, distance, and relationships, but through the rigorous, clinical lens of mathematical geometry. Honestly, if you've ever felt like navigating a relationship is like trying to solve an impossible equation, well, this explainer is going to give you an entirely new vocabulary for that exact experience.
Okay, let's dive right into this. What is the persistent homology of a mind? This is the central, almost poetic question asked by our narrator, who is a pure mathematician, upon first meeting a woman named Lila. He isn't just looking at her, he's actively attempting to map her consciousness using literally the only language he truly understands. He wants to know what features of a person remain invariant, what stays completely unchanging across all the different scales of attention and memory. Basically, what makes you, you, regardless of the angle from which you're viewed.
Section 1. Initial conditions. The distance between strangers.
So, to really grasp what's happening here, we first need to define topology. It's the mathematical study of the properties of a space that are preserved under continuous deformations. Think stretching and bending, but strictly no tearing. For our narrator, who spends his days studying impossible spaces that can't even exist in 3 dimensions, topology isn't just an academic subject. It's his primary lens for perceiving the entire world. It's exactly how he calculates relationships, boundaries, and human connections.
Initially, the narrator calculates his distance to Lila using what's called a discrete metric. In this mathematical view, they're just strangers in a lecture hall. They are distinct, completely separate points with no paths between them. They are essentially infinitely far apart. But as they begin speaking about abstract geometry and the shape of consciousness, the math shifts instantly to topological closeness. He realizes, hey, they aren't isolated points at all. They are suddenly in the exact same connected component, sharing the same intellectual neighborhood.
And this brilliantly illustrates Lila's own area of expertise, persistent homology. This is a method for computing topological features across different resolutions to find the structures, or holes, that persist. Lila actually uses this to track shapes in brain activity data, finding the real signals amidst all the neurological noise. But, as we'll see, finding what truly persists across changing scales is precisely what the two of them are going to be doing with their own relationship.
Moving on to Section 2, Forming Connected Spaces, the math of becoming a couple.
Think about what actually happens when 2 people decide to be together. In math, this is the concept of a quotient space. You form a new space by taking distinct shapes, or manifolds, and defining an equivalence relation to merge them together. For the narrator and Lila, this represents that deeply relatable human experience of deciding this is us instead of me and you. By identifying shared points, like, drinking coffee on a Sunday or just working quietly on a couch, they glue their separate boundaries together to form an entirely new single shape.
Let's move to how this builds because it's fascinating. Notice how geometric building blocks called simplices map directly to their relationship rituals. They construct their relationship the exact same way a mathematician builds a simplicial complex. They start with 0 simplices, or discrete points. Those are their individual coffee dates. Then they draw edges between those points, 1 simplices, through their deep conversations. Finally, they fill in the space to create solid triangles, or 2 simplices, by spending entire weekends together. They are literally filling in the emotional gaps to build a solid structure.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this realization. The hole isn't a gap in the structure, it is the structure. As they grow closer, they realize that a relationship isn't just about where you overlap, it's also about the spaces between you. Separation, personal boundaries, individual differences, these aren't failures of the relationship. They are active, load-bearing parts of the architecture. The voids themselves are what give the shape its meaning.
Which brings us to Section 3, the persistence of holes, separation, and what it means to miss someone.
Let's track the chronological collapse of their shared physical topology. First, Lila gets a dream job offer 3,000 miles away in California. Second comes the failed equation. They try to run the numbers, but if she stays, she sacrifices her career, and if he goes, he abandons his grant. Third, they attempt a 2-week break, cutting contact completely, just to see if they can survive as disconnected components. And finally, the inevitable collapse. Lila leaves for California. Their shared space is just torn in half. With Lila gone, the narrator relies on what he knows best, homology. This is the mathematical procedure for counting holes. Suddenly, he isn't measuring what is there. Actually, scratch that. He's measuring purely what is missing. He counts the zero-dimensional holes of activities he now does alone. He counts the one-dimensional loops of their daily routines that now just go nowhere. And he feels the two-dimensional voids, this massive, hollow volume of a future that no longer exists. He's measuring his life entirely by her absence. Before she left, Lila handed him a notebook containing a pretty devastating theorem, the impossibility of us. It formally proves that space M, which is his life staying put, and space N, their life together, cannot be simultaneously embedded in the same ambient space of their current reality. Their trajectories are mathematically disjointed. As she noted in the margins, it might literally be the saddest true equation ever written. They are a perfect shape that simply cannot exist in standard three-dimensional space.
Section 4. A distributed topology, long distance and impossible shapes.
Now, what's really interesting here is the concept of a covering space. The narrator realizes their long-distance relationship isn't just a broken version of a normal relationship. Instead, it's a covering space. That's a complex, higher-dimensional construction that projects down onto the base emotion of love, but it holds a much richer, albeit way more complicated structure. Their love now exists in multiple configurations all at once. They are together virtually, apart physically, always anticipating the next visit. It's not less than a standard relationship. Structurally speaking, it's actually more.
But abstract math isn't going to keep a couple together on its own, right? You need rigorous parameters. To survive this distributed topology, they established some strict rules. We're talking monthly visits alternating between coasts, a hard minimum of 3 video calls a week, honest reporting on any structural emotional changes, and full acceptance that this is an experimental configuration. They are grounding their highly abstract connection in pure survival mechanics just to ensure the structure holds.
They begin to realize that their connection is exactly what Lila studies, a persistence feature. You start with disconnected data points in step 1. In step 2, you connect them. But crucially, in step 3, you track those features across different scales. Through living together, living apart, time zone differences, career shifts, their connection survives every single change in scale. It doesn't disappear when you zoom out. It is the undeniable signal persisting loudly through all the noise of their lives.
To honor this, they designed a non-traditional commitment ceremony in a San Francisco garden, a topological wedding. They don't sign standard legal papers. Instead, they read vows promising to respect the distance as a load-bearing part of their architecture, not just a flaw that needs to be fixed. They formally recognize that they are actively choosing this distributed shape, validating that their impossible, non-standard topology is profoundly and permanently real.
But just as they stabilize the structure, a massive complication arises. The narrator's university offers them a joint hire. They could finally have the standard topology, living in the exact same city, working in the exact same department. But accepting it means destroying the distributed topology they've mastered and forcing Lila to abandon a massive 5-year NSF grant she just secured out in California. They are suddenly forced to impartially weigh converging geographically against honoring the incredible individual shapes they've grown into. It's a huge cliffhanger.
And this leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought. The math of relationships is rarely a clean, closed loop. It's full of voids, persistence features, and totally impossible embeddings. So looking at your own closest relationships, what unseen geometry is holding you together? What is the shape of your impossible topology? Keep calculating, and thank you so much for exploring with us today.